Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 747, 747, Wednesday, April the 10th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's TowerGate video is one for the archives, my friends. You like bombs? You like bombshells? Boy, have we got some for you today. And it has a lot to do with, there's a couple things that are fairly bombshell, but there's the most important thing I think coming up that I'll cover at the end of the video is the two most recent interviews with George Papadopoulos. He's done two interviews, one with a local Chicago radio station and another with some other individual, obviously has some sort of a radio show. I don't know who he is. But anyway, in these two interviews, Papadopoulos drops a couple of bombs that I'm not so sure he was supposed to say. I know he's not under a gag order by Mueller anymore, but there are certain things that you probably wouldn't say, and he said them. And that might affect ongoing investigations, and I don't know if they just slipped or whatever, or if he intended to say them. Some serious bombshells, though. 3 or 4 things he said that he's never said before. I don't know if they're in his book or not, but we're certainly going to get to those toward the end of the video, so you definitely want to stick around for this entire video, because we're going to go through some things with Papadopoulos at the end of this video. It's going to blow your mind. Blow your mind. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let's get to the news of the day. Okay, so most of you probably already know by now that Doug Collins has now released the testimony of FBI General Counsel James Baker. Of course, we know a lot about James Baker's testimony because a lot of it's already come out. But now we have the full testimony. Of course, we know that James Baker was one of the individuals, of which there were several, that thought that the Right Reverend Clinton should be charged, despite the fact that Comey said that everyone was in agreement that she should not be. But his testimony suggests otherwise. And there's much more. But anyway, the testimony of James Baker is now out, and there'll be a lot of people reviewing that as well. He was, in fact, the general counsel of the FBI. In other words, he was Comey's lawyer for the FBI, who advised Comey on various matters. And he probably would know everything. And if he didn't, then Comey's got more problems. Now, another big story today that's breaking is over on Conservative Treehouse with Sundance. And he's talking about these Comey Memos. Now, we're not talking about the Comey Memos that a lot of people refer to. We're talking about another set of memos. So apparently Comey kept lots of memos. Now, these memos that we're talking about are memos that were used and are currently under seal because they were used in the Mueller investigation. And these are bombshell memos. They're so bombshell that an attorney appeared in court today. An FBI lawyer appeared in court today to argue to the judge that these memos should remain sealed. And this has to do with FOIA requests that are ongoing, trying to get their hands on these memos. Now, it just so happens that this lawyer was the top FBI investigative person for Mueller's team. And since Mueller's investigation ended, he's now gone back to Virginia, and he's now the field director for the FBI office in Virginia. And today, he was arguing in court to the judge, an Obama-appointed judge, that these memos from James Comey should be sealed. So what do these memos talk about? Oh my goodness. These Comey memos show that Comey wrote down who the sources were and their code names. We're talking about the investigation Operation Crossfire Hurricane and other investigations going on around Trump in 2016. So the memos that this FBI lawyer is trying to get sealed will reveal these memos that Comey put together, which include where he writes down the sources, who these sources were. We can assume that we're talking about Halper and Misfit and Downer and others. Who the sources were, and even what their code names were. He writes down in these memos how these confidential sources engaged with the FISA coverage initiated by the FBI. He also says in these memos what foreign governments were assisting with the effort, and also what the plans were for the investigation. In other words, the script for the coup d'etat against Trump, all memorialized by Comey. And there are FOIA requests trying to get these. And now there's this lawyer from the FBI arguing to a judge today to try to seal them, to keep them from our prying eyes. Now, Trump could declassify every bit of this. So let's go ahead and put this on the list. Absolutely on the list of things that need to be declassified. In fact, if you declassify this, it sounds like to me you won't need anything else. The entire coup, Comey wrote it down in memo form. Oh my God. That's right. Grab hold of yourselves. How mind-boggling is that? And Trump could declassify and release every bit of it. So the entire Trump coup operation is laid out in Comey's memos. Trump needs to be informed of this, and he needs to move pretty quickly to make sure that these are released, or at the very least, Nunes or Lindsey Graham or somebody needs to subpoena these, and or at least needs to write a letter to AG Barr and let him know about what's in these memos, why they're being withheld, and why he may want to take a look at them. Unbelievable. Comey better lawyer up, man. Absolutely. This dude's getting indicted on multiple counts. Now, Devin Nunes has filed a $150 million lawsuit against McClatchy, and he says there's many more to come. He says McClatchy was paid by Confusion GPS to attack Nunes during his investigation. And this is something else we're learning. We knew, in fact, this is how Confusion GPS operates. They create these slander stories, these fake news stories. They create them to slander some political opponent, and then they pay the media to run the stories. That's what they do at Confusion GPS. That's why it costs so much to hire them, because you're giving them money that they're going to turn around and give to media. See, the Right Reverend Clinton couldn't just have her little group of people create the dossier and then go pay media outlets to run the stories. She had to find a middleman, and that's what Confusion GPS did for her. That's all Confusion GPS was a middleman. They were a middleman for the Right Reverend Clinton. That's it. That's what we're going to find out when we get to the bottom of all this. Exactly. Yes, Devin Nunes, $150 million lawsuit against McClatchy, and he says there's many more to come. He says he's coming after him. He's told him. He's giving him, putting him on notice. I'm coming after you. Everybody who was part of this, and the way that Nunes laid it out to Sean Hannity, it's like a conspiracy. They were in the know about what they were doing, just as I said yesterday. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were participating in a coup. They knew that they were running fake garbage information and being paid to do it. Man, this scandal is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Patty Willing made a comment in yesterday's video that even she's surprised, as we're learning more and more, that this thing is much worse than we even thought 2 years ago when I started doing these videos. And I agree 100% with Patty. I mean, originally we were talking, okay, well, they obviously ran some surveillance on Trump. They were, monitoring his phones or Trump Tower or something like that. But man, we have learned so much in the past 2 years. And I got to be honest with you, folks. I think we're going to learn some even more devastating things that probably are going to be even more mind blowing. Just my gut is telling me there's something much even bigger and darker than any single thing that we've uncovered at this point. As bad as all this is, just like what Patty is saying, as bad as all this is, I think there's still something else lurking out there that's even worse. CNN and MSNBC's ratings continue to fall. They're in steady decline. And in that same time period that their ratings are dropping massively since the Mueller report came out, Fox News has gained 1.19 million new viewers. That's incredible. That any network would get that's almost like what, 25-30% increase for Fox News in 2 weeks? That just doesn't happen unless something major is going on. Clearly, a lot of people turned off CNN and MSNBC after the Mueller report came out and switched over to Fox. That's exactly what that tells you. You see CNN and MSNBC ratings dropping like a rock, and you see Fox News picking up 1.19 million viewers since the Mueller report came out. The Rotten Reverend tweeting. The Rotten Reverend has tweeted out that MAGA is a white nationalist slogan. MAGA, Make America Great Again, is a white nationalist slogan. Can you believe that? Make America Great Again is a white nationalist slogan. That's a lot like that deplorables comment she made, is it not? I mean, this woman's dumber than dirt. You'd think she would learn her lesson. She comes out and accuses half the country of being deplorable. Now she's out there saying that the half the country or more that support Trump are actually white nationalists. And you know what that's a buzz term for people on the left, meaning Hitler. Despite the fact that Hitler was a leftist, a socialist. These people suck. They suck. Bobby De Niro. Oh, he's a Trump hater, all right. He's a Trump hater, but guess what? You know, Trump's always calling the news media, the fake news media, and always going off on the media. Well, for those of you who don't know, De Niro is tied up in a pretty nasty divorce right now, and the nastiness is over, I guess, custody of the daughter that he and his wife had. And apparently there's some fairly ugly things going on. I guess he's trying to get custody, or his wife, they're fighting over custody or whatever. So De Niro has had a couple bad run-ins with the reporters as this has been going on, as he's been going to the courthouse, reporters all around and stuff. And he doesn't like talking to these reporters very much. He carries a newspaper with him, and when he gets out of the car with his lawyer, he puts a newspaper up over his face and holds it until he walks into the courthouse. He doesn't really respond to the media at all, other than to shout obscenities at him. So this morning he was headed to a court appearance, and with a bunch of reporters waiting there by the courthouse, and they were asking questions, and he was calling them scumbags. Good morning, scumbags. It's just funny that you have Trump hitting the media and De Niro always complaining about Trump, and here you have De Niro himself dissing and dressing down the media. Isn't that grand? So I guess we can say De Niro agrees with Trump on the media. Who doesn't? We know they're scumbags, and we know they're fake news. Well. As I mentioned earlier, the Baker testimony, James Baker, General Counsel of the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, his testimony was released today by Doug Collins. So something else that we had heard before, but now we actually have it in print from his testimony, which is that Baker says that he received memos from the dossier from David Corn of Mother Jones. But he says that he received these memos of the so-called Steele dossier prior to the 2016 election, prior to the November vote. That, unfortunately, is exactly opposite of what David Corn has said publicly. Corn has said that he gave the dossier memos to Baker after the November 8th election day. Somebody is lying. Keep in mind, Baker is currently under investigation for leaking. So, I'm sure there'll be a lot more to come from this as people pour over this testimony. We've talked about a lot of Baker's testimony, and there's some interesting things going on here. He's definitely a person that you get the feeling that if you would drill down on him in front of a federal grand jury, that you could unearth a lot of things, because he was James Comey's FBI lawyer, and he has made certain statements which seriously contradict other people. So either he's lying or other people are lying. One of the most damaging things, as I mentioned earlier, is that Comey when he was asked, he said that the decision to exonerate the rotten Reverend Clinton was fairly much a unanimous decision. But since he's made those comments, we have learned that Baker himself didn't believe that he believed that Hillary should have been charged. We also have this other person whose name I forget now, who was putting up a fight over it as well. So this idea that it was unanimous, that everyone thought that the rotten Reverend Clinton should be exonerated, it turns out that's not exactly true. That there was certainly within the FBI, DOJ, there were people who were opposed to letting the rotten Reverend Clinton off the hook and thought she should be indicted. So these are clear statements of fact and under oath. Both Comey and Baker were under oath when they made these statements. This other individual, I don't know if he's been interviewed before. I mean, he might have, I don't know. Maybe he's been interviewed by Horowitz, but who knows? But ultimately, Comey has been caught in so many lies, and now we find out that he literally narrated in memo form the entire coup, giving names of informants, their code names, names to countries that were involved in the operation, names, lays out the exact plan for how to conduct the operation. I mean, literally the coup plot, and they're trying to block it. Somebody needs to make sure that Attorney General William Barr is given this information, and that he investigated, because apparently, I mean, if you've got James Comey laying out the entire coup plot, you probably want to take a look at it, don't you think? Here's something else we learn from the Comey memos in this court hearing today. Comey was a witness in the Mueller investigation. We suspected that. Now, that would have been most likely obstruction, but it could have been on both sides. What does that tell you? How's that work out? If Comey was a witness, certainly on probably both issues, the obstruction and the collusion, if he's a witness, let's deal with the collusion thing. If he's a witness in the collusion for Mueller, and Mueller found no evidence of collusion, then that doesn't speak very well for Comey. It basically says that whatever Comey told Uncle Bob, the executioner, and his Hillary donor posse, that apparently either they didn't believe Comey, or they couldn't prove what he said, or they had evidence suggesting otherwise. It's very strange that we learned that Comey was a key witness for Uncle Bob, but Uncle Bob ends up with the finding of no collusion. Then, on the issue of obstruction, which exactly involved Comey, it was his firing that the obstruction was about, and he was a witness. The fact that they couldn't make a decision on that, and Barr made the decision along with Rodenstein, and they found that there was nothing there, tells you again that Comey's statement or testimony didn't hold much water. Wasn't believed, wasn't credible, or there was some other evidence that contradicted what he was saying. In other words, Comey was a witness, but apparently whatever he told them in his defense or in order to make a case against Trump or obstruction or collusion or whatever held no water. Didn't fly. Tells us a lot about the future for James Comey. If it didn't fly with Mueller, I assure you it will not fly with a real grand jury and a real prosecutor who's actually targeting Comey, not using him as a witness. Mueller probably thought that Comey would be his star witness. But apparently there's so many problems with Comey or what he said that his testimony carried no weight. This is what this all tells us. James Comey has a lot of problems, man. He's going down. So are his friends. And I think he knows that. William Barr was in Congress today taking questions. It was supposed to be questions about the DOJ's budget and various other things, but the entire thing was dominated mostly by Democrats asking about the Mueller report and and Republicans asking about his investigating the 2016 elections on the other side. It's pretty much what it boiled down to. And it didn't look good for the Democrats. As far as, the Democrats trying to grill him over his 4-page statement on the investigation, he basically said, hey, I'm releasing it, and he explained how he's going to release it. But he said he stands by, he said, I think the exact words he said was, my letter, is, what's the words he used? Speaks for itself, I think is what he said. My letter speaks for itself. It is what it is. It says what it says. And what it says is what it means. There's nothing else to it. Was no obstruction, and we do find no collusion. Period. That's what it says, and that's what you're going to find. You can read the Mueller report all day long, and you're going to come to the same conclusion that I did. There's nothing there. That's basically what he said. On the other side of the coin, Barr says that Huckleberry Horowitz, the Inspector General, FBI Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz, report on the FISA situation of FISA abuse or lying to the FISA court, what have you, during the 2016 election. He expects that will be out by May or June. He also said that he personally is investigating the FBI's activities and the counterintelligence operation and how all that was done and why all that was done and all the particulars around it. He said he's trying to get his arms around it now. He personally is investigating it. And he said that he will investigate these referrals made by Congress, which he knows are on his way to him in the next day or so from Nunes. Then Jordan and Meadows have some things for him. And then Lindsey Graham is likely going to have some things for him. So there you go. Barr apparently is and has no problem saying it. I mean, he's not saying, no, I can't comment on any ongoing investigations or anything like that. No. That's what Rodenstein will say. That's what Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray will say. Barr didn't say that. He said, oh no, I'm personally investigating what went down in 2016 with that counterintelligence operation. Personally, trying to get my arms around it, is what he said. He said Horowitz has got the FISA that he's been investigating for now a year and a half. And he expects that to be out in May or June. And he said, oh yeah, you send me criminal referrals, I absolutely will investigate them. He knows they're coming. Yes, he does. And now, if somebody doesn't tell Barr that Comey's memos lay out the entire plot, I'll send him an email myself. With a link to the statement made by this FBI lawyer who was part of the Mueller team, and after the Mueller team has now taken a new post as the field director in Virginia. Unbelievable. How can the guy who was on Mueller's team trying to frame Trump be allowed to be the person arguing why Comey's memos should be sealed? Doesn't he have a conflict of interest here? Man, there's a lot of problems at the Department of Injustice and the FBI and all the rest. I'm thinking we just need to scrap all these agencies completely. Just scrap them completely. Give lie detector tests to every single person there. Indict the guilty ones. Fire the innocent ones. Tell them to go find a new line of work somewhere else. Start completely over. Get rid of the FBI, CIA, DOJ, and start completely over with something else. These agencies are corrupted to the core. I don't think they can be fixed. I really don't. And by the way, in regards to this ambassador over in Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, whoever her name is, someone asked in the comment section, I think it may have been Lori or Jeanette, I can't remember, one of you two, I think, ask about ambassadors and how this is supposed to work, how they're appointed, who can fire them or whatever. Okay, so an ambassador is appointed typically by the president, and they're usually nominated by somebody. Someone nominates to the president, says, hey, I think that you should take a look at this person to be ambassador of, whatever country. Once the president accepts and puts their name forward, they do get confirmed by the Senate. But the president alone has the authority to fire or recall any ambassador at any time for any reason or no reason. Which is why I was befuddled yesterday when I told you that Sessions himself wrote a letter laying out the solid case why this Ukrainian ambassador, U.S. to Ukraine ambassador, should be immediately, relieved of her position. And Trump himself tweeted about her on at least 2 occasions. I would have to assume that he followed up with an order to remove her. But you can go check, a Wikipedia page today, or you can go check the U.S. Embassy, Ukraine Embassy website, and you can see she is still the ambassador to Ukraine. Unbelievable how that is possible. Can he just, he's the president. He can say, fire her. Now. Get rid of her. Now. And arrest her ass. SWAT raid her ass. She's involved in a criminal plot with Ukraine. Blocking evidence to protect Democrats. She was part of the coup. Things are moving, I know. I'm just obviously not very patient. I don't understand how these things work. I know how it works where I work. I have a boss, and my boss has a boss, and his boss has a boss. And brother, when the boss says fire someone, they're fired. Happens every day. People get fired where I work every day. It's a big place. My boss fires at least 2 or 3 people a week. And there's no bullshit about it. He just gets fed up with someone and says, he just goes up to him and says, you're fired. Clock out. Clock out and walk out. Give me your pass. And they escort him to the door. And off they go. Just like that. The president can do that with an ambassador. What the hell's going on? Now, Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos. One more thing before I get to Papadopoulos. Here's one more thing. Yesterday, I mentioned to you about this term, Clinton cover-up operation, being used by Platte River. People working at Platte River were using this and making jokes about this phrase, Clinton cover-up operation. And it's right there in the FBI documents. But what we learned today is that the reason and where that phrase, Clinton cover-up operation at Platte River, the reason that became sort of a slogan or a funny line that they were using there at Platte River was because that's exactly what was written on the work ticket for the IT tech who received the call or received the work order. It's like if you work in like where I work, we have tickets for IT people. If we have a system issue or something, we send a work ticket to our IT guy. He gets a work ticket, tells him what the problem is, and he goes and solves it, hopefully. This is exactly what they do at Platte River. And so the technician who received the work ticket at Platte River, the description of what he was supposed to do, and what he was going to be working on this work ticket said Clinton cover-up operation. That was to bleach bit and destroy all the emails on that server, which were under subpoena. 3,200 and some odd. Almost 32,000 and some odd. Almost 33,000. These people should be in jail, man. It's clearly obstruction. Now, Papadopoulos. This is going to blow your mind, man. Again, I don't know if Papadopoulos slipped up and said something he shouldn't say, or if he's cleared to say this stuff, or if he's going to get some flack about it. But here's some bombshells. I'm just going to drop these on you right now. And this occurred in 2 consecutive radio interviews, one from yesterday and one from the day before. Both were radio interviews. One is like a regular interview with a Chicago talk radio type guy. And then the other one was someone who I don't think he's like on talk radio, although he may be on XM or something. I think it was some other guy, but he has a fairly good-sized audience. So here is what we learn that Papadopoulos is now saying that we've never heard before, that he's now saying publicly. It's going to blow your mind. First, he says that he learned when he was in his testimony with Mark Meadows and others questioning him, Ratcliffe and Meadows, I believe he said, he found out during his testimony that Halper, Stefan Halper, the fat man, was wearing a wire. He was wearing a wire. What does that mean? Well, it means they've got the conversation between Papadopoulos and Halper on tape. There's a record of it. There's a recording of it. Boom. We need to talk to Mr. Halper, and we need to have a listen to that recording. Don't you think? Papadopoulos says he learned that he had a FISA warrant on him before and after joining the Trump campaign. He had a FISA on him before and after. He says that Australia and the UK were working in tandem in their operation, and the Italian government was involved as well. And he's not just talking about the Australian and UK governments participating, helping out. No. If you listen to the way he words this comment, the comment that he makes, he's suggesting it was essentially more like a UK and Australian joint operation to take out Trump. They didn't need to be prompted by the CIA or John Brennan or anyone else. They already had an operation underway to destroy Trump on their own. At some point, they obviously merged on that idea or started working with the U.S. But apparently, it wasn't like they were drawn in or asked to do some things by Brennan. They already had their operations underway working together apart from the U.S. operations. And at some point, they obviously merged all these things together. This is going to blow your mind. Papadopoulos thinks that Carter Page was a plant inside the campaign. Papadopoulos thinks that Carter Page was a plant inside the campaign. Many people in the comments section over the past 2 years have stated that they seriously question Carter Page. Now, in all honesty, I have to say that while I never dissed anyone for that, and I never, climbed on anyone's back for that and tried to talk, give them hell about that, because I wasn't 100% sure. But to be quite honest with you, I never really believed that. I thought Carter Page was pretty straight up myself. But it appears those of you who may have had some questions about it, Papadopoulos is basically suggesting you're right. He's saying that a week after he joined the Trump campaign, Carter Page called him on the phone. He didn't even know Carter Page. He just knew they were both basically fairly low-level volunteer campaign guys. But what Papadopoulos said was weird to him is that he had never been formally introduced to Page, didn't know him. He certainly wasn't working for Page. They were both kind of working their own thing, parallel. They weren't really working together on anything. And he says that Page warned him, gave him like a creepy phone call, and was like, "Hey, you better stop, you better back off on the Russian stuff, and you better quit, trying to do this Russian stuff or whatever." That's what Carter Page told Papadopoulos a week after he joined the campaign in a phone call. Never talked to him again. And he says it's kind of strange because he says Carter Page is the guy that had all the FISAs on him. Carter Page, he says, is the guy who actually did work in Moscow for Merrill Lynch. He did have Russian contacts. He was an FBI informant and had just completed working with the FBI to take down a bunch of Russian gang members in an investigation. He was working as an informant. And he says the most important thing, Papadopoulos says, have you noticed that he's the only one that wasn't indicted or jailed or anything like that? He says all the rest of us who actually had nothing to do with Russians, me and Flynn and Caputo and Stone, we're the guys that got attacked, not Carter Page. So he believes that Carter Page was a plant. He also says that Misfit has very close ties to the Clintons, both of them. And he said he was told this by his wife when his wife warned him after, she was his girlfriend back then. And, he was talking about, I met this guy, Misfit. And she said, oh, I know Misfit. I've known him for a long time, because she worked at the EU and she knew him quite well. And she said, oh, yeah, he knows the Clintons. He's totally real tight with the Clintons. He goes to the same meetings with them. He functions and stuff. He knows the Clintons quite well. You might want to avoid this guy. He's bad news. He says that Mueller threatened him to sing, compose, or go to jail. And he also says that Obama, Comey, and Brennan were behind the coup. And he thinks they all will be indicted. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. See ya. Bye.